Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I'm very excited because I have in front of me a wonderful woman named Shoshana. She is a registered dietitian, and she is going to teach us all about how to feed our little ones. So if you are a mom of a newborn, or you're planning or expecting, this is definitely a podcast episode for you. So welcome, Shoshana, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So the first question I always ask my guests are to introduce yourself by sharing who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Okay. So, as you said, my name is Shoshana. I am a registered dietitian in private practice, and I work with all sorts of people, but one of my biggest specialties is moms and their littles, specifically babies, toddlers, and little kids. And one of the things that I really focus on is helping moms to build a healthy relationship with food for themselves, but also foster that same healthy relationship in their children.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think part of that is, children watch what you do. They hear what they hear everything that you say. And so I think that the best thing that a mother can do is just lead by example.
You're exactly right. I always say, like, monkey see, monkey do. Mm-hmm. They want to be just like you. So if you say you don't like something, guess what? They're not going to like it either.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't even think about, we were going to kind of target this more to feeding your newborns, which I'm excited to do. But then also too, maybe we should talk a little bit about picky eaters. Because I feel like a lot of times, sometimes there's just, kids go through trends and they just are picky eaters just because they're picky eaters, or they're picking up what their friends are doing or saying. But I have also worked with women where they'll say that their kids don't eat any vegetables, or they don't eat anything. And the question is always like, are you eating those vegetables? Are you asking them, do they want the vegetables? Or are you giving them multiple opportunities? So I'm curious, sorry, we're just like jumping right in, but like maybe what your experience is with moms with picky eaters.
No, you're exactly right. So a lot of times moms will just kind of give up if their kid says they don't like something, or if they say they don't want to eat it, and they'll give up after the first try. And the key with kids is exposure. And even just putting the food on their plate is considered exposure. So the more we can expose our kids to different foods, and even the same foods over and over and over again, the more likely they will be to eat it.
Right.
And even to make it a little easier for yourself, you don't have to offer it the same way every time. Like, you don't have to just do steamed broccoli. Make it fun. Put it on their plate with a fun food pick. Maybe some cheese on the broccoli this time. Put a little teeny bit on their plate instead of a large portion, so it seems less overwhelming.
That's a good tip. That's a really, really good tip for sure. Yeah, I definitely think that that's definitely helpful. So anyways, going back to we were originally talking to, I kind of even interrupted you. You told us what you do, but you didn't say why you do what you do. So I'm curious why you chose this path to become a registered dietitian and have to help other moms. I know that you are a mom, so other moms like yourself, in helping them to feed not just themselves but also their children.
So the reason I became a dietitian, this goes like way back to when I was a teenager. I reached a point, maybe 15, 16 years old, where I just wasn't happy with myself. And I really wanted to figure out, like, how can I make a change? And the one thing I knew that I could do was I could eat better. So I took it upon myself. Actually, I didn't drive at the time. So I remember my mom took me to a bookstore, and I bought a food journal and another book that had like nutrition. At the time I lived with my parents who, we would go out to eat fast food, like almost every night. So I wasn't in control of what food was being brought into my home. So I could be in control. The only thing I could be in control of is what I actually ate or what I chose from the things that were provided for me. So I got a book that had like the popular fast food restaurants and like all the nutrition. So then if we went to, let's say, Burger King for dinner, I would look and find something that was like lower in calories and like a healthier choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I started making healthier choices. I started staying home and cooking for myself, and I would keep a food journal. And I lost like 20 pounds, and people would be like, oh my God, help me lose weight. And ever since then, I was just interested in, how food affects your body and how you can make changes to the way you feel, the way you look, and the amount of energy and so on and so forth, just by changing what you ate.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what got started me in the direction or the path of nutrition.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's been, a crazy road from there. But I think that that's really cool that you took this personal experience. And I think a lot of dietitians, we go through similar situations where, we notice that we may have started eating differently for one reason, but we come out with it like, wow, like I got a lot more out of this than I thought I would.
Yeah,
so that's really cool.
Anyone that becomes a dietitian, it's either because of their own personal experience in the past or somebody they knew.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that had some kind of issue with food or weight or something.
Definitely. Awesome. All right. So what I thought would be interesting to talk about was more about kind of the nutrition journey, like as for the baby, as you start to introduce solid foods, because there's a lot of misconceptions. And also right now, I feel like there's a lot of fear of a child having allergies or developing allergies. And so they want to make sure that they're doing all that they can to prevent this child from getting allergies. So can you speak a little bit more to about when you're starting to introduce foods, if you should be introducing the top 8 allergens kind of around then, or you should wait? Like, talk a little bit more about that, because I know that the recommendations have changed recently.
Yeah. So when it comes to, well, first of all, let's preface with introducing solids in general. Like, what age do we introduce solids? So there is a lot of differing information out there. But if we look to one source of information or one, source for information, we can look for the American Academy of Pediatrics, so the AAP. They're kind of like the gold standard. They set the rules. So regardless of what anyone tells you, you can find accurate information there in terms of when you should introduce foods to baby, just foods in general, solids, the allergens, so on and so forth. So the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that we wait until baby is 6 months of age and showing all signs of readiness. That's just in general. Okay. So a lot of pediatricians will say at 4 months old, hey, you can start giving your baby cereal. Hey, you can start feeding your baby. That's great. That's all fine and dandy. Even my pediatrician has told me the same thing. But I'm the mom. I have to do my own due diligence, and I get to decide ultimately what I do with my child. So the right thing to do, at least in my eyes, is to follow what the AAP is recommending, and that is to wait until baby is 6 months and showing signs of readiness. The reason that we wait is because baby's digestive system is very immature before that time. And introducing solids or anything other than breast milk or formula can be dangerous for baby, as well as if they're not showing all signs of readiness, meaning they're sitting up on their own, they have the palmar grasp, the tongue thrust, they're no longer pushing food out of their mouth, all of these things. If they haven't met all of those signs of readiness, you are increasing their risk of choking. So that is a big deal, right?
Yeah,
you don't want baby to choke. So when baby reaches 6 months of age and showing all signs of readiness, then at that time, it's okay to start introducing solids. That said, if baby is 6 months old and is not interested in eating, it's okay to wait till 7 months. You want to follow baby's lead.
That's good. And I think that's like anytime we have nutrition recommendations, it's all about individualized care. And I think that's really important, and that, it's okay if the baby is past the 6-month mark and still not showing those signs. I'm curious if it would be, if maybe say the baby's 5 months, although the academy says to wait till they're 6, but what if they're at 5 months and they're showing all of those signs? Would you introduce, or would you wait because of the digestive system's not really there yet?
I would still suggest waiting until they're 6 months of age, especially since that's what the AAP is telling us to do.
Sure.
But I want to go back to what you said about allergenic, the top 8 allergies. So this is a little bit tricky because studies show that, so it used to be that they would say, don't give baby the allergen foods. Don't give baby the allergen foods. Wait, you need to wait until they're a year old.
Sorry, not to cut you off. Should we tell them, should we maybe for our listeners, the top 8 allergens? Do you think that would be?
So top 8 allergens, everybody knows, right? Peanuts. Peanuts is the biggest one. That's so popular. Tree nuts, eggs, dairy, peanuts, tree nuts, eggs, dairy, fish, shellfish,
soy.
Yeah,
I was like, I just want to make sure that, just so those who, if you don't know, those are the top 8 allergens. So those are things we would want to be mindful of waiting before introducing. And obviously those come in all different types of forms. So,
So it used to be, we were told to wait until their babies were at least 1 year old. Now there is research suggesting that the earlier we introduce allergens, the less likely children are to have a food allergy. Mm-hmm. So we want you to introduce allergens right away.
Right. Yeah. So, and should you introduce them kind of all at once, or whenever you're introducing foods to baby, should it be like one at a time?
Absolutely one at a time, because if you, let's say you introduce like 2 or 3, even just two foods at the same time, and baby has a reaction, you have no idea what they're reacting to. So start with one, and then, offer that food a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times, then introduce another, and even with the allergen foods, maybe do it earlier in the day. Like, don't offer right before bed, because if baby has a reaction at night, you may not be awake to recognize it or see it.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. Now, say we're starting with, I don't know, tofu came to mind because we talked about soy as the last thing. So say we start with that. And you do that for like a couple of days. Like, how many days would you wait to do the new? 3 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's helpful. And then, okay. So I guess the thing that I also wanted to talk about, is there any truth to those who are breastfed versus those who are formula fed in potentially being more at like a higher risk for becoming like having food allergies?
I haven't seen research in terms of them being at a higher risk. That would be something I would need to look into. Okay. However, on the other hand, I have seen research showing that babies whose mothers ate, let's say, a lot of peanut butter while they were breastfeeding, then those children were less likely to have a peanut allergy.
Right. So that makes sense, right? So they're technically being introduced even earlier on. So we used to think we had to wait, but I mean, at this stage, the baby is building up all of those antibodies and all their immune system and all of those things that are actually going to protect them.
I
so that makes sense.
With my first, because with my first son, I used to eat so much peanut butter. Oh my God. And so I would be like, there's no way he's going to have a peanut allergy. I'm like, he's good.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a peanut allergy. I used to eat a lot of peanut butter when I was nursing him.
Yeah. No, I know that's so funny. And it's just crazy how, so I feel like I have a responsibility as a dietitian to just say, like, I feel like someone could be listening to this and possibly being frustrated or annoyed that like the science always changes. And like, I could understand that because like, if you are a mom, maybe you have an 8-year-old and now you have a newborn and you're like, oops, oh, well, like, things happen, but now you're bringing this baby into the world. And now when 8 years ago you were told to wait, and now that your child maybe has severe allergies, and now you're being told like, if I only was given better advice then, so I do want to just kind of remind everyone that like nutrition is a science, and these recommendations have always been, the intention has always been to help you and to never hurt you.
Right.
And so I think,
right.
Yeah. And I think using resources like you just provided is always helpful because, I mean, especially like I'm not even a mom. My cousin's pregnant. I know a lot of my friends have had children, like, and some people are like totally okay with like posting and asking for advice like on Facebook and like getting all these recommendations. I look at those feeds and I'm just like, my head hurts. I'm just like, and I'm not talking nutrition. I'm just talking about like things about a car seat, like the most like, like the most, and I'm just like, there's just so many opinions. Like, how could you possibly sift through and know what's right? And I like that you provided that one source that people can go to kind of help with that, because everyone has an opinion.
You have like your mom who had a baby 30 years ago,
true.
Who thinks that and I'm like, Mom, don't you remember you like put us in like a bucket in the back seat? Like times have changed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, seriously. Oh man. Oh God. Okay. So anyways, so that's good. So now, all right. So as you start to introduce new foods to the baby, and you start to recognize they either have allergens or they don't have allergens, and they start to eat better, are there any specific nutrients or foods, maybe past that, I don't know, maybe like we're more around that toddler age, that you might recommend, or at any point in their life? Like, are there any specific foods that moms should be like really trying to incorporate, or foods they should be being mindful of maybe they don't incorporate, or something like that? Like, are there any sort of things that pop up in your mind?
Just a variety of foods.
So variety.
Yeah. And don't just give up if your child says they don't like it one time. And another thing that a lot of parent moms worry about, it is hard to get toddlers to eat vegetables. It is. Yeah. My kid barely eats vegetables, barely. Mm-hmm. But he eats a lot of fruit. Okay. Fruit has nutrition too. Like, it's okay.
Right. Right.
As long as you're continuing to expose your kids. So I put the vegetables on my kid's plate every night. Mm-hmm. Does he eat them? Maybe, maybe not.
Right.
But I'm not worried about it, because I know I'm keeping to expose him. I'm continuing to expose him to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's helpful. So I think variety is helpful, like you said. Like, I think that is the biggest thing. And that also shows in adults too. We're constantly seeing that people with a more variety in their diet have healthier guts, and less likely to have deficiencies, and just feel less deprived and more well nourished, and less likely to get sick, and all of those things. So I think that's helpful. Too, I think what you're saying is, like what we were talking about earlier, if you lead by example, then they're never going to have to do what we had to do, which was, we grew up in families that where fast food was a lot of the, was a big part about it, big part of the diet. We had to kind of teach ourselves how to eat better. We had to do our education, rather than it just being something that, we grew up watching, and now we didn't, we could focus on other things. So, I mean, it was great for us. It created our careers and all of that. But, if your kid wants to be a lawyer, we don't want them to be worried about, the food that they're eating. They want that to, if they could already have had that, like if I already had that early on, like life would have been a lot easier. Right?
I feel like more important than the food that you provide your children is the words that you use surrounding food and meal times.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's go there. Can you give examples of maybe positive things, or maybe things not to say?
Yeah. So not everybody has access to all different types of food. Some people only have access to certain things. So, but what and those types of things we can't always control. But what we can control is the way that we speak and the way that we talk to our children and we talk about food, whether we're talking about ourselves and our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I want to emphasize is what we say becomes their inner voice, right? So if you label your child a picky eater, guess what? Your kid's going to believe it and be a picky eater.
Mm-hmm.
If you say something like, oh, you're not going to like this. Guess what?
Yes.
Now they're not going to like it.
Yeah.
You know? So even just changing like little things that you say. So this is an example that I've caught myself. You know, my son, kids, they want to try, they want to be just like you. So if you're eating something that they've never had before and they say, I want to try, let them try.
Yeah, for
Don't
sure.
say, oh, you're not going to like it, or you probably won't like it.
Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah.
You like it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Let
Oh my
them have
gosh.
the opportunity. So it's funny because we don't realize that we're saying anything wrong or, you know, that's not so good, but those types of things can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know? And
Definitely.
also not focusing so much on them eating. So taking the pressure off. You know, if you have your kid at the table and they're really not eating much, that's okay. We want them to pay attention to their own fullness cues.
Right.
So instead of pressuring them to eat, oh, just one more bite, 2 more bites, just say, okay, you don't have to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure off, you will be surprised at how much they will actually eat.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I think that's like, I make that analogy all the time. Like when you tell when you tell a kid they can't do something, you automatically want to do it. So like if it's kind of like reverse psychology there. It's like, it's okay if you don't eat your veggies. It's like, oh, maybe I will eat my veggies. Like, you know?
Yeah, no, if you leave them alone, like one of the funniest things it's like when people will start giving their children food, right? And then they just stare at them.
Yeah, that's
waiting for them to do something.
Yeah.
Would you want someone staring at you? Like,
yeah,
leave them alone. Just
totally
eat with them. You know,
Yeah.
take the pressure off.
Yeah.
And then everyone can enjoy the meal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that was actually something I wanted to ask you about. Can you speak to family meals and actually sitting together as a family and eating with them? Because very often I'll see, and sometimes, you know, it's not always possible with different schedules and, you know, maybe multiple kids and stuff like that. But how important is making, you know, sitting down and eating together rather than like just feeding your kids and then like going and doing work and then like coming back and checking on them. So like you're saying be hands off, but I don't know if I don't think I hear you. It's not that hands off. Like you don't want to just like give them the food and then peace out.
No, well, don't forget what we were talking about before. You need to lead by example. Okay.
Yeah.
So your child needs to see you eating and behaving at the table in order for them to learn how to eat and behave at the table.
Correct.
If you don't give them that opportunity, or you just put them in the chair and you are cooking while they eat, or you put them in front of the TV, then you're not giving them an opportunity to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, you're going to say, my kid won't sit at the table. Well, you didn't show them to sit at the table.
Right.
You know? So yes, I do absolutely think it's important to sit at the table and eat with your kid or your children. And there is research that shows that families that eat together eat more food, have better relationships, are more adventurous eaters, so on and so forth. That being said, I get it. You can't do every single meal. So I would aim for at least one meal a day. Everybody sitting together, talking, enjoying, and eating the same foods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another really great point. I've also worked with a lot of people where they have mommy's food, daddy's food, and baby's food. But like you just said, it's helpful when everybody's eating the same food. So serving the same meal, not everybody has to eat the same, but we want to build the plate similar and have the same options available to everyone.
Right. So if you're not willing to eat the food, then why would baby want to eat that food?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And also, baby learns from you by watching you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put like something on their plate, I don't know, a banana, you can't expect them to magically know Like children have to learn, but they learn from you. So model. And the way that we model eating is to actually eat with them, right? So sit down, make the same meal, and, obviously cut it and prepare it appropriately for baby's developmental stage.
Right.
But you can absolutely have the same foods. And I lost my train of thought. There was something else I was going to mention. Oh, if you continue to only give your kid like kid foods, you're setting yourself up to become a short order chef until your kids are out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is not fun. Definitely not fun. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I feel like I was going to ask something too, but now I lost my train of thought. Oh, God, it's the gloomy day.
I was just going to say, it's the weather.
Such a gloomy day. And we're, I've every time, it's so funny because this episode will probably come out, I think, in June. Okay. Hopefully we're out of quarantine by then, but I'm not sure. But like, I feel like I'm going to have episodes like through the summer where everyone like they're thinking I'm like still stuck in quarantine. But it's like, hopefully we're not still stuck in quarantine, like in the middle of the summer. But
I don't know what's going to happen.
I know it's really rough. But yeah, before we started recording, we were talking about, and I know you guys can relate to this, like just gloomy days in quarantine are just harder. They're just so much harder. Like it's really, oh God. Anyways, back on track. So is there anything that comes to mind, like through conversation, things we've been talking about right now, any maybe piece of advice, maybe some piece of advice for some new moms, because I did title this Nutrition for Newborns, and I feel like a lot of the new moms are going to be the ones that are mostly listening to this podcast, and maybe outside of food, maybe just some recommendations you have for them. Maybe they're feeling nervous, they're feeling anxious, or, just anything that maybe you wish you were told before your firstborn, that you would wish you would have known beforehand.
One thing that I wish I would have known about introducing solids, right? So when you watch like TV or movies and they're feeding baby, the baby's like eating it up, right? Because it's just like nothing. So I'm thinking that my kid, the first time I offer solids, he's just going to like eat, and that's not the case. It's not the case. Granted, there may be some babies out there who do pick it up like that, but eating is a learned skill, right? So they have to learn how to eat. They have to develop the skills. They have to develop chewing, how to move foods around in their mouth. So don't expect your baby to just like eat like as if they're like an adult already.
Right. Like expect a mess. I think that's what you're saying. I think you're saying like it's going to get a little messy.
Expect them to not even ingest any of the food. Like I'm like, he didn't even nothing. Even my 10-month-old, he's 10 months yesterday. He, like most of it, he's a food stuffer, and I'm going to share some information about that soon on my own channel. And I didn't have this my first. He just puts food in his mouth.
Oh my gosh! But he doesn't.
And he just holds it there. He just he's learning how to move the food around in his mouth, and he hasn't yet figured out how to get the food to the back of his mouth. So he just kind of holds it there.
Oh my God.
It's so cute.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's learning. He doesn't know. He's getting there.
The funny thing is it's very normal, and it's just him learning how to move food around in his mouth. But most moms don't even know that that's a possibility because nobody tells them.
Right. Exactly. Something else just came to me as you were talking about that and saying how it can get a little messy. Two things I think we need to talk about. And one, is it okay for kids to play with their food? Because we've always been told not to play with our food. And then two, what happens if your kids don't finish your food? Should you force them to finish their plate? Go.
Okay, so which one first? We'll just go play with the food first. Yes, let your kids play with food. Okay. Playing with food is a sensory development experience for them. And believe it or not, it will help them be more adventurous eaters. So I will give you an example. I made meatballs for my whole family, my husband, myself, my 2-year-old, and even my infant. Okay. So I had made mini meatballs for my 2-year-old and regular size meatballs for my husband and myself. And then for my infant, I cut it into a strip that he could hold. So my toddler, the meatballs, they're a new food for him. Even though I have put him on his plate multiple times, it's still a learning food.
Sure.
It's not something that he eats and that he likes, regularly. So he had like 2 little mini meatballs. I just put a few. Maybe I put 1. I don't even remember. Anyway, he asked me for a big meatball. I said, sure. I gave him a big meatball. He began playing. The big meatball was the mommy meatball. The big meatball was the little meatball. Then he had a car. He's very into cars. He was feeding the car the meatball. And then he put the meatball in his mouth and he ate it.
Yes, I love that story.
All because I let him play with it. He had fun, and it became less overwhelming for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he had it in his hand and there was no pressure and he was exploring it. And so then he wanted to taste it. And so
awesome.
That was a really positive food exposure, and he was playing with his food, and it just goes to show it works.
That's
so
great.
There's been other experiences in my house that has helped. And even just putting like my 10-month-old, when the weather, I have this exciting idea. Many other people have done it before. It's not like I came up with it. When the weather gets warm, I'm going to get like a big tub and a bunch of strawberries, and I'm just going to put him in there in a diaper and let him just play.
Oh my God.
Sensory experience, eating and squishing and
so cute.
But that kind of stuff, it makes them more willing and more adventurous. We want our kids to be adventurous eaters. Definitely.
So yes. So yes, kids should play with their food. Sorry if you got to clean up the mess, but it's worth it in the end. It will save you lots of headaches in the long run.
Yeah. I have like a mat that's underneath my kid's high chair, and that kind of makes it easier because then you can just pick it up and dump it.
Yeah. That's true. That's a good tip. So, and I just thought of something else. Oh my God, we could talk about kids and eating forever. But so I want you to talk about the kid. Should your kid finish your plate? And then my one last question, and then we'll wrap it up, is what do you say to a mom or a parent, for that matter, who says that their baby or their maybe even their like toddler never wants to eat a meal? Like they'll snack all day long, but they'll never eat a meal. So that'll be the last thing that we answer. But let's speak to should your kids finish their plate? So,
the Clean Plate Club, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hate the Clean Plate Club. The Clean Plate Club rears its ugly head in my adult practice, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All the time, because we were taught to clean our plate.
Yeah.
And now what happens as adults, because we were taught to clean our plate, is we find ourselves eating past fullness. So this is what we want to avoid with our kids. Everybody is born with natural hunger and satiety fullness cues. Mm-hmm. If we teach our kids to ignore those cues and to finish their plate, then you are setting them up to have, overeating problems in the future.
Yeah.
As an adult, right? So we want them to pay attention to their hunger and their fullness cues and to listen to their tummy. So if they feel like they're full and there's still food on their plate, that's okay. Mm-hmm. We're done. Mm-hmm. Package it up, put it in the fridge for later, offer it at a next meal, throw it away, whatever you choose. But we don't want to make them eat past fullness because it's only going to cause them to lose those natural cues that us as adults wish we still had, you know?
That we work on, and I know you do in your adult practice, like I do. Like the first beginning of working together with a new client is helping them reestablish and learning how to trust their hunger cues. And honestly, I don't know what you've seen from your experience, but in mine, it takes a lot longer than you think. It's not like it's something that you fix in a month. Like it takes a few months to really get to that place. And with a lot of guidance, a lot of accountability, and a lot of strategy around that.
It's not easy to retain those cues.
It's really not. So
we want to help foster the ability for children to understand and listen to them. Mm-hmm. So an example you can use is there's a chart with bears. Okay. So from here to here, all these little bears, and the belly is empty, and then over and over and over and over, the belly gets full. Mm. You can say, the bear's belly is full, or the bear's belly is empty, or the bear's belly is in between. Which bear does your belly feel like?
Oh, I love that.
So you can say, check in with your tummy, you know?
Oh, I love that.
So try and get kids to understand how full are they.
That's great. Thank you for that. I think we've learned so many great tips. This is so awesome. So last question. What would you say to a mom who says their kid snacks all day long but never wants to eat and sit down and eat a meal?
Yeah, they probably don't want to eat because they've been snacking all day. If you've been snacking all day, you're not going to be hungry for dinner. Right. So to get around that, create a meal schedule. Breakfast is at this time every day. Snack is this time. Lunch, snack, dinner. Right? Mm-hmm. If you stick with that meal schedule, then your child will get used to, okay, now is dinner time. I'm going to eat dinner now. If you let them just graze all day, then it's no surprise that they're still that they're not going to be hungry.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah, great point.
It's just like an adult. If you're just grazing all day, you're not.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Which is why, so let's transition. I want you to let people know where they can find you and talk about more on your Instagram, but your Instagram and your business and your page and everything that you do, you don't just work with moms and teaching them how to feed their kids. You're also working with moms and teaching them how to feed themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Right? If we can't rebuild or regain control of our own relationship with food, there's no way you're going to be able to help foster a healthy relationship with food in your children. Mm-hmm. So I love working with moms and really kind of opening their eyes to like being okay with eating and letting go of food rules. And it's not like nutrition is really not that serious. Like it's okay, like even with your kids, like it's okay. It's okay if they don't want to eat it. It's okay if they do like it. Like, right. Relax.
Yeah. I think I hear what you're saying. It matters, but I think a part of the problem is not even like setting up the environment and setting up the, the room, the temperature, the availability to have those foods, that's half the battle. After that, it's like, okay, if you don't feel like eating the veggies that you've prepared every day, it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. But if you never prepare them and you never try and you just think of food as like, it's so difficult and it's so hard, then it's always going to stay difficult and hard.
Mm-hmm. So changing your mindset. Exactly.
Yeah.
Helping moms to realize you don't have to diet all the time. In fact, dieting is really not the answer.
Yeah, and it's also probably not setting the best example for your children. Not. Awesome. All right. Well, this has been amazing. So, Shoshana, please tell everyone where they can find you. They want to connect with you.
So, my Instagram is at Fueling Mamas. So, MAMAS is how I spell mamas, _little and _littles. So Fueling Mamas and Littles. That's my Instagram. I also have a website, Nutrition by Shoshana,
nice.
Which has links to my Instagram and my Facebook and all of the above there. So you can find me at both places. Facebook also, Nutrition by Shoshana.
Awesome.
So I hope you guys there.
Yes.
Information for moms, for littles, recipes. I also do videos of my 10-month-old showing him trying different solid foods. So if you want to see what you can expect from your baby, you can see mine.
I love that. Yeah, no, I think that's really great. I think that's really helpful. It's always, I find it always helpful to like obviously get help from an expert, but when you get help from an expert that is personally going through or has been through what you're looking to achieve, it's always a lot, like I rather work with, like, obviously if I need help, when I have kids one day, or if I have kids one day, I don't know if I want them. And like, I'm looking, for a registered dietitian to help with, like, I'm going to go to one who's also a mom, I think. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there might be better or worse at their job, but I do think it helps to have that personal experience.
Yeah, I think people want to relate.
Yeah, for sure.
So
awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Tony podcast, please subscribe. A new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. So when you're subscribed, you get notified. And I want to say again, thank you for showing up here today and listening. My name is Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.